Right now, many of you have heard the word used quite a lot lately. Oh, crossover, crossover, crossover. Well, we know that the crossover is that day when the House of Representatives and the Senate have to tie the ribbons on their bills and give them to the other guys. It's not an adversarial deal. But to explain how it works is Rep. Andria Tupola here. It's Minority Monday, and we want to talk about a lot of bills. But first, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, and I hope you are too. And I hope that you had, we'll talk about what you've been up to pretty soon and some of the things in your area coming up, including traffic. Everybody wants to know about it. Okay,
oh, yeah.
What are your people talking about traffic? But I think it's pretty interesting to explain to people how this works, because when you guys do this thing crossover, that doesn't mean that the very next week you start voting on these bills, because some of these bills I know that you're aware about, but isn't it really that each department, whether it be the House or Senate, during the first half of the session, they're really only concerned on their stuff, not the other guy's stuff?
Yeah, and I think when we talk about crossover, what we're saying is that the Senate's now vetted their best ideas, passed it over to us, and supposedly we vetted our best ideas, passed it over to them.
Right.
So the month of February, we're spent on doing our own chamber's bills, and then we swap, and in the month of March, we study the other chamber's bill, and then in the beginning of April, we vote on each other's, and then probably like mid-April, late April, that's when we're deciding which version is best, which one we're going to go with.
Yeah, which ones get tabled.
Right, and then the final vote is first week of May.
Yep. Okay, so that's under an ideal situation. Now, things are pretty ideal with regards to that today, because I think that we've had probably the normal amount of bills this year. I don't know if it's more or less. I think it's about average. When they're in the very beginning, aren't there like 3,000, and doesn't it narrow down to about 300 pretty quickly?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, however, at what point in time do people start voicing their opinion? And in other words, isn't there a whole other series of committee meetings and hearings and where people can comment?
Yes, it's really important right now that you get involved, because now people might have heard a bill was coming through, but now it actually passed to the other chamber. So you're going to have a chance to testify now in the hearings in either the Senate or the House for bills that you are for or against. But be careful, because some of the language has changed.
Yeah. That's what I'm worried about. So that means that you have to have a pretty good staff that says, hey, you know what I found? We thought this, but this is not really what it says. It says something else.
Right. And so like for the fishermen, I know they're tracking a lot of bills.
Oh,
and
boy.
A lot of the bills that they have to watch ever so carefully, because one word from moratorium to not moratorium to may or shall can totally make the difference in a bill.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you brought that up, because usually it's me is bringing up the fishing bills on our Go Fish program, and particularly with the section of it that is sponsored by the Western Pacific Regional Fishery Management Council. There's a lot of stuff, both nationally, internationally, and local, that the ledge is looking at this year for fishing.
Oh, yeah. I feel for the fishermen, especially because it seems like they're always having to be ever vigilant at the Capitol and trying to make sure.
They got to go fishing instead of being down at the Capitol.
I know. All these fishing guys over at the Capitol trying to fight to make sure that they can still do what they do.
Okay. And one of the ones I'm talking about is you, Uncle Roy Morioka. If you're out there, on behalf of the fishing community, thank you for the countless hours you spend parsing through all of this stuff. I get email all the time saying, hey, go check this, the meetings on so-and-so and such and such. I think I think it's maybe interesting, Andrea, because you are the rep in that part of the island, and a lot of your folks are sustenance people, and a lot of your folks rely on Waianae Boat Harbor and go fishing.
Oh yeah,
and Haleiwa and all
especially with the fishing issues. I cannot not know what's going on. I have to inform myself, be aware, not just at harbors, but there's the Papahānaumoku Akea monument that was made federally, and they're trying to pass a state bill that would mimic that, which a lot of people are asking, is that even necessary? Because it's a federal law.
Well, the fishing community will tell you that about a third of our longline industry has been affected by the closures. And that means more price, more money at the table. And once you start telling local families your eye is going to cost more money, you're talking fighting words.
Right. And one of the things that, the Kauai rep as well as the Molokai rep brought up is that in the Papahānaumoku Akea, it says that if you fish within the monument, you have to consume within the monument.
Yeah.
And so.
And that means you got to cook and eat on your boat.
before you
come back to port. Yeah. That's very, very hard. Yeah. Okay. Now, however, there's a whole bunch of others that are pretty juicy. And one of the ones that's coming up that I think is important, well, the whole of them are coming up, but I still need people to understand. You sort of explained it. The crossover is, okay, you work diligently and then you're done. Your package for the House and the package for the Senate, that's it. Nothing new can be introduced. What we're going to do is massage these around and then go back to vote. And so once again, when the hearings and the vote starts, when do people get involved?
Well, the people should be involved from day one, but I think because it takes a while for people to hear, what we have is this thing called 48-hour notice. And sometimes it's even shorter because people can ask for a waiver of the 48-hour notice.
Are you talking about for a hearing? Or
Yeah. So a lot of people sometimes, especially on controversial bills, you might hear of a waiver and then all of a sudden you have 24 hours to get the word out that this very controversial bill is being heard and that we should all go voice our concern down at the Capitol.
Now, when you say that, the good news is, I know it's a little bit kind of a rocky road, but the way to commit and get online is a lot more friendly than it used to be. And for those that are smart enough, you'll go ahead today and you'll register. And once you've registered and they know what bills you're interested in, automatically you're going to be, get a heads up on when something's happening, right?
Oh, I would definitely encourage people to register and do that because the system can actually track the bills you're interested in, give you notifications,
give you updates.
That, there's a hearing for it. Oh, it passed over to the Senate. Oh, there's a new version.
I know there's a lot of people, and I know you hear this a lot. Hey, Andria, how come you guys' meetings are all at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a work day? Well, that's because you're working, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to let everybody know in time. And what about people that say, you know what, I cannot get there because my boss is a mean old grunch and he won't let me off because this has not got anything to do with my job. Well, the good news is you can still submit.
You can submit, and they still read. We all have the opportunity to read your testimony, even if you're not in the hearing room.
Yeah.
So if you're a diligent representative, you can read through all the testimony and make sure that you know the pros and cons of every bill. Okay,
there are some things that are going around right now, some petitions. And right now, one of them is about this sanctuary. And being a sanctuary state and all this stuff. And a lot of it is, all right, somebody signs that because their friend or their relative, somebody's impassioned about it. And they may impart information that is not 100% accurate to prey on your emotion to get you to sign something. Let's talk about petitions because I know you guys see a lot of petitions.
People ask me that all the time. Are petitions effective? Like if we sign one, does it automatically make legislators act, wonder, should we make a law? I would say that, the large number of petitions that come across our desk or get dropped off at, committee chair's desk. I don't know how much that affects them as much as key stakeholders. I feel bad, but lobbyists walking into your office because they come constantly.
Well, I can tell you that if somebody's out in front of a shopping mall and spouting about something and wanting me to sign something, I've never done it. Even though I know that's how I feel, I'm thinking, wait a minute. You're not reading the fine lines. There's a list. You're being asked to sign this. And once you've signed something, your representative is being told, oh yeah, well look, I looked through this list. Boy, a lot of my constituents are on there. I better vote for that. So they have some weight, obviously.
Maybe. Again, I would say for me as a representative, I always weigh in heavily if I do hear from my constituents, having those community meetings, reaching out to them via email, via phone. Because for me, it is about the stakeholders who actually have insight and expertise in every issue. Well,
a lot of people will, and I know you've seen these, and I saw some as recently as this morning. People will send me something and say, please respond. Here's what you do. Cut and paste this.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, okay, let's say that I do that. And all of a sudden, let's say that you're my rep.
Yeah.
And so I send this cut and paste to you that's exactly like 100 other guys send it to you. To me, if you're going to do that, I think it's a good idea. But if you have to put somewhere in your personal thoughts.
I think so. I'm looking through my email right now. There's about 1,000 emails that are exactly the same regarding HB 469 and 470. In opposition of outsourcing of public services. Mm-hmm. So, anybody can look through this, but people have what is it called? Auto forms where you go on the website, you put your email, and then I get the same email from maybe 1,000 people.
And now, if that is to do with, say, like a labor issue or something,
right?
You already know where it's coming from. It's coming from a well-funded union that says to all of their members, here's what you got to do. You're going to get screwed unless you get this and get that. So send this to all of your reps and stuff today. So that's what you're talking about. The numbers are astonishing how many people do the clicking, right?
It could be in one day. It could be in one night. When I open my email the next day and it's just flooded with thousands of the exact same email with a different name at the bottom.
Do we have at the state level the space to be able to accommodate that? Because I know that sometimes, depending on your server, that your email box gets full.
Oh, we're told to clean it out constantly because especially at the end of the session, the IT department tells us you only have this much space. You're already over your space.
Yeah, of course, everybody is. Speaking about over your space.
Now, back to Mike on 690, The Answer.
Okay, so up there I'm talking to Rick Tupola about how things get brought to their attention. And it's by email, it's by thing. And, here's the thing that you need to know. A lot of times, a bill that is introduced by a rep or by a senator is based on the input from their constituents. It's not always a lobbyist. It quite often can be somebody, Andria, maybe you can explain some of the things that you've written, where somebody in your district will come to you and say, hey, you know what? Do you know that this is happening? You take a look and say, hey, we need to legislate. There needs to be something to happen. So explain really briefly before I give you some email that we're just getting about how stuff gets to you to allow you to, first of all, look at it and then attach an opinion and a vote to it.
Well, I think for me, especially because I'm really active on social media, my constituents know that they can contact me multiple ways. They can tag me on Facebook. They can inbox me. They can Instagram me. They can call my office. They can email me. Yeah. For me, especially when there's like an important issue, we try to have a town hall around that issue so people can come out and voice their concern. Because I don't expect everyone to be able to come down to the Capitol.
Right.
So I try to solicit their concerns in the neighborhood, in their community, where they're from at night when they can attend. But also I have an online town hall. So my online town hall has about, I think maybe between 4,000 and 6,000 members. It's called the West Side Town Hall. But I do also listen to concerns in this. Oh, sorry. It's 2,600 members in the town hall. I listen to concerns in here
because
that's a lot. Well, and
that's good indication of involvement.
And there's a lot of people that they work 3 jobs, 2 jobs. They're never going to be able to come to a meeting. So I want them to be able to still voice their concern to me. And they could do it at 1 a.m, 3 a.m, in between shifts, when they're switching. And
I can tell you one thing. This is you hear the expression paradigm shift a lot, but this is a shift because those of you that are listening that might be longer in the tooth than Andria, and somewhere in between Andria and me, have got to realize that the world is changing. And unless you embrace this stuff, and this is technology, and what I give you an example. The other day, there was a mandatory Salem meeting where the president of our company in California said, all hosts, all producers, all things, you will get into this meeting, this town hall meeting we're having. And they had a couple of senators and a couple of congressmen. And they said right in the beginning, this is off the record. This is, none of this can be aired. No sound bites, no nothing. They're here to talk to us. And it was so effective. I thought, oh, geez, I got to go listen to this. But it was really enlightening. So this means that I can stop. I'm in my auto shop. I'm working on my customer's car. I can listen to them. I can participate.
Right. And I think our most popular Facebook group that we have is called Westside Traffic Alert. We have almost 15,000 members in this group. And especially this morning when we had the accident at Campbell Industrial, I mean, they're reporting on the radio, but people are stuck out there trying to find side roads. But my guys on the West Side, they know how to get around. So one guy says, oh, here, this is open. Go this way, go that way.
But you got to be on the list. If you want to know how to get someplace on time, you better get on our list.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this one it's really effective because on Sundays and Saturdays when there's no news reporting, yesterday there was the intentional hit and run at Nanakuli. There was an accident in front of Kalaeloa. There was an accident in front of Trax Beach by Kahe Point. So all of that you would have never known if this Facebook group didn't exist because we don't have live reporting and we don't have traffic cameras on the West Side.
Okay. By the way, speaking about that, here's a typical email. This comes from Davin, and it says, when do the lawmakers step in and try to cut down the high-speed motorcycles? Regulate speed, mandatory helmets, ? They drive at a high rate of speeds on the freeway and highways. I've almost hit a few because they swerve in and out of traffic on the freeway. And I know that's a great question. In other words, the laws are already there.
Yes.
But let's say that somebody says to you, you know what, Rep, my street is nightmare and it's in your district. Wouldn't then you respond by saying, okay, we've notified the authorities that you are concerned. Next time, call 911.
Oh, no, definitely. Even on my traffic alert, when it's something super dangerous, I say, don't call me, call 911 and get this person, get the authorities to know. I would say that personal responsibility is super important. With the accidents we had yesterday in Waianae, people are saying maybe cell phone companies should make it where as soon as you walk in your car, the cell phone turns off. You can't use it. And a lot of people are like, where's personal responsibility? Why would it be the responsibility of the phone company to make sure that you don't use your phone in your car?
Well, one thing that really cracks me up, and I know you've heard this, I'd say right now, if you're driving right this minute, you're listening to me and Andrea, you're on the road, you're in your early morning commute, I will guarantee that if you look to the left and your right, not you driving if you're a passenger, look to the left and right, you will see somebody doing something illegal. You will see somebody texting. You will see somebody, doing something that they shouldn't be doing while they're driving. And it's your job to report it.
Right. And I think that what we can do on the law side is increase the fines, increase the penalties. DOT put out some bills out there to increase fines and penalties for speeding, for phone use. And right now, CDL drivers get fined $1,000 if they're caught using their phone.
Yeah.
And I think regular operators.
Those of you that don't know, the CDL guys are the ones that are doing the heavy lifting. They're delivering. They're usually large vehicles, or they got a lot of people on them. In other words, they need to 100% be eyes on the road and not worrying about getting a shopping list or seeing somebody's picture of a baby.
Right. And so for a regular person, the fine is, I think, 190 right now. And people think that it's still not high enough. They think people don't take it seriously. So.
Well, there's another thing too. And this actually, let's tie into this for a minute before the news here. Some of the bills that are on the plate right now are talking about additional taxes on things like gasoline and on the roads. The Department of Transportation, for instance, I know they have put their weight behind a couple of increases. And how do you see that coming? And how do you say, it sounds on paper, it looks this will solve a problem, but where's the money going to come from?
Well, and I think that last year, they tried to pass the increase in the the fuel tax, the vehicle registration, and the weight tax. Right. And when the bill didn't pass, the governor made it apparent in his statement that they would try again this year and that they would pass it.
And they're doing that.
Right. And it's back again this year. Mm-hmm. And so I would share with those of you who don't know, we have what we call A funds, and A funds are from general fund. And this is like our taxes, our fees. This is what they call the general fund, the big black hole where all the money goes. Okay. So the general fund.
I'm glad to hear you call it the big black hole, because that's what some of us taxpayers feel.
Well, we don't know where it's going.
Just give everybody a shredder. Let them shred their money. Yeah. That's the same thing. Yeah.
So the general fund is A funded. So Department of Education gets A funds, Department of Health gets A funds, but the Department of Transportation operates off of fees, vehicle taxes, and federal funds. Mm-hmm. And so because they don't have A funds, which is why everyone's frustrated, right? Where's all our taxes going? Why is DOT constantly trying to raise their revenue, or their monies for repair and maintenance are solely off of fees and taxes? So that's why they're trying to raise it constantly. And we brought this up in the road usage charge.
One time they'll say, what a good job we are doing. We're balancing our budget. Yeah, on our behinds. Yeah. I mean, you're balancing your budget because you charge us more.
Well, and that's why they cut back on all new projects. That's why DOT said they're not doing any, because they said every new project we build, we need more repair and maintenance money, and we don't have enough of that. So.
Okay, real quick one before the news here. I know that part and parcel of that, and we'll talk about those specific bills that are to do with the increases. There's some big problems going on in you guys' neck of the woods in schools. And I know that there's some schools that have been taken off the board as far as being done, and everything looks so far down the road. I do know that the governor's promise of doing certain things to certain classrooms are not going to happen because we either don't have the money or there's opposition. Kapolei, for instance, I mean, Campbell is obviously, it's the biggest school we've got, right? And it's spilling over.
Yes.
And so that being said, that means that how do you fix that? Well, it doesn't mean that you take a look at every development going on in the area, whether it's McDermott's area, your area, whatever. That part of the island is expected to provide services for people, and that's why they move out there. When they get out there, they get mad because there's not services, or their kids are in a crowded classroom, or they're hot.
Right, right. And I think what Mike's referring to is developments versus communities. Mm-hmm. We need to build communities that actually have enough schooling, enough emergency services, enough roads. Yeah. You can't just build houses. Mm-hmm. You got to build the whole caboodle so that when people get to that community, they have what they need to survive.
The interesting thing, though, and the bonus or the burden is that that's the area of the island that has the opportunity, the land availability, and some of the other things. Yeah. But I mean, as far-sighted as the legislature needs to be, if you roll back the clock 30 years right now and told the existing House and Senate, this is how many people were going to be living in Kapolei, they wouldn't believe you.
Maybe, but the island of Oahu, they made the EVA development plan years ago. Yeah. I've looked through the document. It was made more than a decade ago. If people were reading these documents put out by the city, because they do our planning, then they would know how to project state. Mm-hmm. I think I submitted my testimony about Ho'opili, and I said, we need to be step for step with the city in the west side, because we kind of have the city merging ahead, but the state doesn't know. We can't have the state merging ahead, but the city doesn't know.
Yeah, that's the them and us that most of us feel victim to,
Right.
We don't know who to believe. We're talking state or talking county or city. We got more coming up with Rep. Tupola, including your ability to join us at 296-KHNR. That's 296-5467 or the Mike Buck Show at gmail.com. Okay, so it's Minority Monday, and Representative Andria Tupola is here. Her neck of the woods is a busy neck of the woods every day in traffic, but she got here on time, which I must tell you, I've been doing politicians on the radio for years, many, many years, and some people always got there in advance. Some people never got there on time. Never, not once in the years that we did them. And I know that isn't it exactly true that living in where you live, when you have to get in town for a certain time, you guys got to live early.
Oh, we wake up at the crack of dawn.
Yeah.
You're from West Side when you got to wake up at 4 a.m. and that you're the only person on the road because you got to get all the way into town and you got traffic for 2 hours.
I hear that some of you guys actually wake up the rooster so that they let everybody wake up everybody else. Okay, now you heard this. There's a lot of talk about this sanctuary city, sanctuary state stuff going on, and there is a push here. Once again, we talk about petitions and their value. There were a few dozen people that got together that are looking at this, but it's actually more than that. And I'm not sure that that people really know what's being suggested here. First of all, are there actual bills that deal with this now, or is this just a conversation?
No, there is no bill currently moving. Yeah. Well, from our side, from the House side, regarding a sanctuary state. Yeah. No. What
are your concerns about maybe what people do and don't get about what this means?
Well, we hear that California is proposing to be a sanctuary state. We had a representative from Maui say that he wanted to propose that island be a sanctuary island of the state of Hawaii. So I think what people are concerned about is what would a sanctuary state mean? Yeah. Because the federal government has made it clear that it means that you will get no federal funding.
Yeah, now I'm going to let people know how significantly important this is. I don't think it matters what political party you're in. Right now, it is probably not a good idea for any state to buck the federal government.
If you want to get all your federal funding pooled because you want to make that decision, it's up to you. But
here's specifically somebody that wants to know about something specific. Please ask Rep. Tupola what she thinks about funding and about, for instance, the state of Hawaii suing the federal government over this very matter. Right now, we found out that Doug Chin has spent is able to spend $150,000 discretionarily, and that the money is going to a Washington state law firm to do this. And then what happens? And he's entitled to do that. He's within his bounds to do that. But when the money runs out, now there's got to be more money. Don't they come to the ledge for the money?
Oh, yeah. And I think that, I really want to hear the people speak out on this. So many people have brought it up. Like, our attorney general suing the federal government, is that something that we want to do right now? Yeah. Do we want to disadvantage ourselves and maybe cut any type of federal, help that we need? And on top of it, is that even an effective move? Well,
the thing that I'm worried about, and I get most pushback about, and I'm sure you hear about this, and, we've often talked about this. I don't care what political party you're in. I don't think there's any one of us, or any one of, I should say you all, in the House or the Senate that wakes up and says, how badly can I screw Hawaii up today? That's not what they do. They think they're doing the right thing. So there are people that are under the impression that this is the right thing. But our congressional delegation has been in lockstep from day one about anything that Trump wanted to do, let alone that. So what's a guy like Trump going to think about us if all he's getting is a bunch of niets from us?
Oh, and he's definitely asked people when they come to ask for help or funding, are you the state that sued me? Are you the state that, you know what? We had a bill. We had a bill last Tuesday. They called it the Trump bill because it was saying that if you wanted to get your name on the Hawaii ballot as a presidential nominee, that you had to disclose your tax returns. Right. And so we had this huge debate over it with a lot of people on both sides. Lots of Democrats voted against this bill. And one of the statements made by a Democrat was, do we want to disadvantage ourselves when we know that this is the hand that feeds us, that helps Hawaii? Do we want to make this kind of statement to the government, to the federal government, on where we stand on an issue so manini?
Yeah. You know what? I'm glad you said that, because a big pushback last week was this threat, supposedly, Trump is going to decimate the Coast Guard. We're going to lose the Coast Guard. We're going to lose this. We're going to lose that. And it just so happened to be that a Coast Guard cutter comes in with this huge drug bust, which we know. a guy like Trump, I don't care what you say, is not going to be against that continuing. So I don't know.
No.
I don't know where this comes from. I think the mandate is that the people gave this man when they elected a president is stop wasting our money and find out ways to make the country function better, like you did in business. Show us, fix our financial woes.
Well, and that's the thing is that they were trying to address the bleed out of how many people were supporting and how many of those people are actually citizens. So.
Yeah, well, in other words, and that goes back to this sanctuary thing. And I don't think there's a person among us that if you go into, say, a church and you think somebody's persecuting you, I don't mind that being a safe place. I don't mind law enforcement not being able to go into a recognized church because there's a lot of psychological things going on there. You know, there's religion, there's family, there's all these kind of things. But if you're going to be walking down the street and not be legal, why would we say, okay, well, you know, you didn't come here legally, but now that you're here, what the heck? You know, I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, what if somebody has been part of our society for 20 years and all of a sudden we find out they're illegal? There's consequences because they're lawbreakers. So this is what we're saying is Hawaii's going to ignore that. They're going to ignore federal law.
Well, and I think that asking people or making it more clear that they need to get legal, that they need to do their papers, that they need to make sure that they're registered, they're paying taxes, that they're set up as a portion of society. All we're asking is that everyone who's here contribute.
Do you find that happens? The constituents come and say, hey, you know what? How can I get some help? My mom is nervous every day that somebody's going to come knock on the door and take her away. She came from Ilocos Norte in the Philippines 30 years ago, didn't come here legally. How many thousands of people in the Philippines are waiting patiently for us to admit them to come here and be with their families?
I know. I haven't personally encountered any of that in my district, but I can imagine for those who are legally trying to come over what the frustration would be. Yeah.
Well, particularly if you know that there's a guy down the street. If you're waiting for your mom or your brother or your cousin to come from the Philippines, if you know there's a guy down the street that came from Japan or China or wherever, and they got off a plane with a visa and they never got back on again, aren't they like Senator Sam Sloan, former Senator Sloan was going to, they're taking a lot of money out of resources that should be used to people that are here illegally.
Right. And again, back to the root of the problem, which is the amount of money that we have and how much can we expend for our communities and our societies if people aren't contributing.
Yeah, let me give you a direct quote. This is something that a quote came over, that opponents believe sanctuaries may provide a safe haven for criminals. And here's a quote from former Senator Sloan. I call him Lonesome Sam because he was the only senator. Now he's out. And I'm not sure, but I think that Stanley Chang, his replacement, is part of the effort on the sanctuary. I'm not sure. But anyway, Sam Sloan says, we're talking about, this is a quote, we're talking about illegals. They take benefits that are for Hawaii residents. They increase the cost for healthcare and education and everything else. This is a matter for the courts. The courts will settle it, and I'm confident that the court will uphold the power of the presidency. That means with the sanctuary issue, doesn't it?
Well, and that's the thing is that what we're saying is that there should be a legal entity deciding this. We're not saying we're going to go around and take people out of Hawaii. What we're saying is that we should make sure that it's legal, that the courts are handling it, and that we support the laws. If we make laws, we should support the laws.
And by the way, let's say that somebody gets I have a good friend, David Ramirez, in the tax business. He's our tax consultant and he's an advertiser with us, and we do this tax thing. He says a lot of people that haven't filed for years and years and years, when they finally come to get their comeuppance, they're relieved. They're relieved that they're doing something legal. How many people do we have that are in fear of every day of somebody knocking on the door, and they shouldn't be? Mm-hmm. Just fix themselves.
Yeah. And the process is hard and long, and I think if we need to address that, then we need to help them. But if it is where people are just not doing it merely to not comply, then we need to handle that.
Do you agree that we can't just shrug our shoulders and say, well, you came in 20 years ago, you didn't do it legally, but you're really a nice person, so you can stay?
Oh, we should go back on every single issue then. On the Airbnb, are we going to let people who are illegally having Airbnbs, pay taxes and all of a sudden they're legal? No.
Yeah. If you pay the $21 a month, you can keep doing your illegal thing.
Well, and that's the thing is that if we make people pay taxes who aren't doing legal things, then what are we doing? So that's the whole Airbnb issue, is that if they are illegally in a residential area and they're having this, then we should do something about it. Not just, pay taxes. It's okay. Stay in my neighborhood.
Okay, let's go out to the phones. I got Dwight. He's got an immigration. This ought to be interesting. An immigration point. Hey, Dwight. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you both for your hard work and time. I'm just curious. I hear all kinds of estimates as to how many illegal aliens are in America and in Hawaii. It's something like I hear Hawaii is something like 15% of the population is illegal. And then I hear estimates, I guess on the average, that about 25% of the people in our prisons are illegal immigrants. And if these statistics are even close to being true, then it's really scary. We're spending
I don't know where you got that. I don't know where you got that number, and I'm sure Rep. Tupola would be the same. I think it highly unlikely that 15% of the state of Hawaii is here illegally. Where did that come from?
I may have heard wrong, but it was a month or two when the statistics were coming out and people were talking about these. But that's why I asked. These are just things I'm hearing, and I want to know if what the real numbers are, I guess. And I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, thanks, Dwight. I don't know the numbers either, but somewhere I can wrap my figure around somewhere between 20 and 30,000, I think is the number that I've been hearing.
20 and 30,000. I don't. That would be lower than 15%. Much lower.
Well, lower than 15% on a million is 150,000. So this is a very small percentage.
And Dwight, well, I'll try to look that up and try to get some numbers too, because I think if we were, I'm a huge stickler on talking with facts. Yeah. We need to talk about facts, because then people will know whether or not we're addressing this correctly and not just.
Well, listen, we have a soundbite that I've been playing, more of a comedy piece than anything else, for a long time, with how many times the president said in a speech in the very beginning, if you like your doctor, you're going to keep your doctor. If you like, and over and over and over again, which goes to the theory of if you say something often enough, and if it doesn't get challenged, it becomes a fact.
Oh yeah, I challenge statements all the time, and I encourage my constituents to challenge statements all the time, because you cannot just believe every statement that comes out there. Challenge a statement, find the source, figure out the resource, and figure out if that's the correct fact.
I also use follow the money. That helps a lot too sometimes. Okay, we got more to come up, including your opportunity to join us. Rep. Andria Tupola in the House. Minority Monday, we got a few more things, including something that I want to talk about, which is really cool because it involves ukulele. That's coming up, but right now it's time to take a look at
Feeling hot, hot, hot. Feeling hot, hot, hot.
Oh, Lordy, things have heated up down at the big square building. Okay, so the drill is, the crossover happened Tuesday last week, and everybody started parsing out things, and everybody's sort of taking a look at it. And before we get on to some specific things, I did want to ask you again, or let the audience know, that your staffers become very, very valuable at this time, because like you said, when you read what a bill pertains to, somebody actually has to go through the whole thing and see what little surprises are hidden in this stuff.
Oh yeah, we have a whole research office that helps us, and I'll give a shout out to our HMIR, our House Minority Research Office, because we have people studying these bills. I have staff members that are reading it. They're paying attention to news articles. We're trying to survey what's going on, because it could be something as small as one word, and it was said in committee.
Give me an example of that.
Well, okay, so one word was said in committee that it was going to be put into a bill, but then when it came out, that wasn't in the bill. So who's going to catch things like that? Because you sit in the committee hearing and then you wipe your brow and, okay, thank goodness they changed this word. But then when you look at the bill, it's the same exact thing.
And by the way, you say sometimes a word like shall or may be. You really have to see what the adjective is in front of something. Might be enforced, could be, and then but it doesn't say that it will be.
Right. Well, and shall be means that it has to.
It will have to.
Maybe will be like, okay, well, they may enforce it, but they don't have to enforce it. So.
Okay. What about? Let's talk about the emotion. For one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, I know that this is a big deal this year, is the assisted suicide bill, and I do know that even there are some people that don't like it hearing that. They don't like hearing that word, but the reality is what the reality is. And from what I understand, in the House, there was this very emotional meeting. I mean, and I'm talking about actually in the Senate. Right. Breen Haramoto, it was running this thing in the Senate, and his speech really hit the nail on the head. It got a lot of people, teary-eyed, crying.
People were crying because Breen has faced death.
Yeah.
Breen has almost, he had to face this cancer. He had to decide whether or not his life was over.
Yeah.
And look, Breen Haramoto is a serving senator. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that it says within the bill is that the doctor can determine that if somebody is diagnosed with a terminal illness, that they can do this. But how many times has a doctor diagnosed something and it's been wrong?
Yeah.
Because we never, ever know the whole complete story of a life or of what can happen. Yeah. And if you are that person, I know there's many people out there that were told you have 3 months and guess what? You're still alive.
How about this? You'll never walk again.
And then
the
they
guy
walk.
becomes an army ranger.
Right. Because people will tell you that you have these debilitating conditions, these limitations, but really, I've seen people overcome. Someone says, oh, you're going to be gone in 6 months. This is why the oncology board is determining whether or not they're going to be part of opposing this bill. They have cancer patients. They determine every day whether or not they can put a price tag on a life.
Well, there are those of us also that have had the experience, and by now almost everybody listening has had somebody in their family leave because it's part of life, right?
Right.
Don't ignore the inevitable. But there are sometimes when a family member, a specific family member, it happened in our family, is the person who tells the doctor that we've decided this or we've decided that. This is no easy decision to make. Right. So the assisted suicide doesn't mean that you keep it in your medicine cabinet, and if you're having a bad day, you can leave. Right. And that's where people are confused. Like, end of life care is still super important. In fact, I just got back from a conference in Colorado, and they were praising Hawaii for how many options we have for the elderly, because a lot of states don't have the amount of options that we have with adult foster care, with adult live-in, with residential adult care homes. So what I'm trying to say is that if we are talking about end of life options, those are still out there. If you as a family want to determine when to pull the plug, this has nothing to do with that. Yeah, that's really important, because my doctor was telling me just the other day, I was at my getting a checkup and at the clinic. And one of the things that he says, I got to go through this with you, and to go through this list of what do you want. Do you want to be revived? In other words, as you get up the food chain and you get older, they start asking, okay, if something happens, if an ambulance has to come to your house, do you want CPR? Do you want this? Well, of course, but you actually are having to make a choice. Right. And you can. And this bill does not take away any of those choices. You can still make those choices. What this is doing, this bill, is basically being able to not prosecute the person who assists somebody else in suicide. So if you are a doctor that is assisting someone to kill themselves, now it's not going to be prosecutable. So that is different. Giving somebody a pill is different than saying, hey, at the end of life, do you want them to pull the plug, or do you want family members to determine this? That will still be out there. That'll always be an option. You and your family will be able to make those decisions. Okay. There is a meeting in your neighborhood tonight. This is an important one. The traffic and the deaths. I'm not sure it's in my imagination. It's maybe because first of all, we've had more deaths on the highway this year to this time than we have last year. We supposedly are driving with a lack of aloha. And a lot of things have happened in your neck of the woods. What are the concerns? What this meeting's about? Well, the past 2 weeks, and Westsiders, I think you can feel my pain, because we've had quite a few accidents on, I think it was Friday night. So this went into Saturday morning. Somebody hit a pole right on Farrington and Kaukama, and then boom, that whole area. Down goes the pole, lose houses without power. Right. Yeah. And then I think on Sunday, we had an accident on Hale. We had one in front of Kahe's. This morning, there was an accident that hit a pole down in Kalaeloa, Campbell Industrial. So a lot of people on the west side are frustrated because, it's basically the largest cul-de-sac on the island. One way in, one way out. There's not an access through road. And last week at the neighborhood board, the Waianae neighborhood board, the neighborhood board chair said something so impactful, which is we actually have roads in our community to get out, but they're not open. We have a military road. It's called Kole Kole. It hasn't been repaired. Senator Inouye got the money to build a bridge for that road because it got washed out. In other words, we've known for decades of the bottleneck and of the problem, but we've been kicking it down the road to the point where now is what has to happen to activate those roads? Money? Well, and I think with the federal side of it, I emailed Tulsi Gabbard over the weekend. I told her, is it time that we actually do a congressional act to take these roads out of the Navy hands and maybe put it into the Army who could maybe use it, or put it into an entity that would actually upkeep it and open it to the community? Well, we are so concerned about our relationships with the military, which in Hawaii are fantastic. We're an island state. Sometimes we need military assistance with people, certainly with equipment. You have a tsunami, you have a this, you have a that. But then the other side is, hey, why can't we use that property over there? What's so secret about it? Well, and the sad part is that it used to be open. People used to be able to use it. There's a back road through Lualualei that access Kole Kole. It used to be open to the public in the mornings. And so we realized that at the point we're at, it needs to be repaired. When I spoke to the Navy about this, it was a 1.5 mile distance that needed to be repaired of an 8 mile. So you're telling me that we can't repair the 1.5 mile and with an entity that owns so much land in our community? I hate to tell you this, but they have the equipment and the manpower to do it themselves. Why wouldn't they just do it and help us out? That's what we asked the Navy. We said, nominate this to the Theater Effects Board, that's part of PACOM, get them to handle it as an exercise.
a military exercise of engineers to do this. It's a 1.5-mile stretch. And in the event of emergency, you're telling me we have a road, but we can't open it? It's because we haven't taken the action.
Well, I can tell you one thing. I'm glad that some of you younger folks in that house can handle this emotional load, because it gets kind of hard sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah.
What about the ukulele? What about what's happening with you guys? Got a little festival going on?
Yeah. So tomorrow, if you want to come down to Four Seasons Olina from 6 to 7, we're going to have it open to the public. We're going to have Carly G as well as Kale Gamiao and local performances by Nanakuli Elementary, Makaha Elementary, as well as I think Island Pacific Academy. So we're going to have the kids come. And this part is just for the after school programs from 4 to 6. And they're going to mingle with ukulele masters, ukulele builders. And then at 6, we open the concert to the public. Their parents come. They get to see their kids perform. And we're giving away free ukulele.
Oh, my goodness.